Hi, I'm Stu Friedman. I'm a professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm the author of a new book called Total Leadership: Be a Better Leader, Have a Richer Life. And this book, which is written for anyone at any organizational level, any career stage, takes you through a method that I've developed in a step-by-step form to enable you to better integrate the different parts of your life in a way that improves performance in all the different parts. And those parts are work or career, home or family, community or society, that's friends, neighbors, social groups, political action groups, religious groups, the earth, whatever. And finally, the domain, the fourth domain of the private self, and that's mind, body, and spirit. So the idea is to integrate the different pieces in a way that improves performance in all of them. And in order to do that, it takes leadership. The book, Total Leadership, tells the story of a course that I've been teaching at the Wharton School and in companies and communities throughout the United States and in Europe for about 10 years. And it illustrates the method of total leadership with examples from real people creating real change and improving performance in all the different domains of their lives, the different parts of their lives. And those are four: work or career, home or family, community or society, meaning friends, neighbors, social groups, religious groups, etc. And then the fourth domain of the private self, which is mind, body, and spirit. So the book takes you through a series of exercises, step by step, that enables you to improve performance in all the different parts of life by integrating them better, more intelligently. And here's how it works. There are three main pieces. The first is to be real, to act with authenticity by clarifying what really matters to you. The second part is be whole. Recognize and respect the whole person and act with a greater sense of integrity, bringing the pieces together into a coherent, integral whole. And the third, the fun part, most fun part, is be innovative. Act with creativity by experimenting with how things get done. So in the book, I coach you in how to bring these three principles to life in your real situation at work, at home, in the community, and for yourself. And this goes for you whether you are a student or whatever your career or work situation is, whatever your home or family situation is, and same for your community interests and however you think about the domain of the private self and what's important to you. Again, the primary purpose is to improve performance in all four domains of life by integrating them in a more intelligent way. That means thinking about the relationship among the four domains as mutually enriching, which is different than how most people think about it. Most people think about balance. I think balance is dumb. A better way to think about the relationship among the different parts of life is not so much two scales or a scale trying to create a kind of perfect equilibrium, but rather a jazz quartet where you have the bass, you have the drums, you have piano, and then you have a horn. And each one of those different elements contributes not to balance so much as to harmony. So at different phases of life, or even at different phases of a day or a week or a month, the different instruments are playing a different role in making that music. And there's improvisation around a theme. I find that this is a better way to think about how to bring the different parts of life together for mutual gain, for the sake of harmony and reduced conflict, and, most importantly, better performance. To make that happen, to improve performance in all domains of life, requires leadership. So, total, whole person, leadership, creating sustainable change, mobilizing people towards valued goals. Let's go through those three steps. To be real is to clarify what really matters to you. So what you'll do in the first part of the book, after thinking about your goals for why you'd want to do this kind of approach, is to think about what really matters to you by looking back in your history. What are the 3 or 4 critical episodes in your life that have shaped your values, that have determined who you have become to date? How have those incidents shaped your most cherished beliefs and what you hold most dear? So you'll write about those, a paragraph or so to tell the story, and then think about how those events have shaped your values. You'll also look forward. Write a few paragraphs or a page on the impact you're having on the world, the legacy you're going to be having, leaving 20 years hence. What would that look like? So you write about that, think about that, and again, that helps you to clarify what really matters most to you today. You'll also look at a set of core values that many different people have used to describe what's important to them as leaders in the different parts of their lives, and choose the 4 or 5 that are most relevant for describing you and what matters most to you. Also, in this Be Real first part of the book, you look at the 4 domains: work, home, community, and self, and take 100 points and assign them to the 4 domains to indicate how important each one is to you. So if work was everything, you would have 100 points at work and 0, 0, 0, 0 for the other 3. If everything was equally important to you, well, then it would be 25, 25, 25, 25, or something in between, which is mostly what I usually see. So that's the first part in the 4-way view that I'll ask you to take. Second part is to look at the focus of your time and attention in a typical week. Where do you focus your attention in a typical week? Take 100 points, allocate that 100 points similarly to the 4 domains. And then look at how things are going. Are you satisfied with how things are going in each domain and overall? And how well are you performing? If I were to ask the most important people in each domain to rate your performance, what would they say? So those are a series of exercises, and there are a couple more, that help you to get clearer about what matters most to you. That's the foundation, being real. I'll also ask you to share what you've just written and some questions that'll help you to make the most meaning from what you've just written. Share it with people you trust, a couple of other people who would be ideally doing the same thing. So my recommendation to you would be to form a kind of mini reading group where you're doing this work along with a couple of other people and you're sharing your observations and coaching each other. And I give you guidance on how to do that in the book and throughout it, including an appendix which tells you how to create your own coaching network and how to make the most use of it. So you've done some introspection and some conversation about what really matters. The second part then, Be Whole, comes to life in this way. Imagine the most important people in your life at work. Who are they? Who are those people? The people that I call your key stakeholders, the people who have a stake in your future at work, and then in your home or family. Who are the most important people? And then in the community, who are the most important people? And what are their expectations of you? So at work, at home, and in the community, who are the most important people, your key stakeholders, and what are their performance expectations of you? And then for yourself, emotional health, physical health, spiritual growth and development, and relaxation. What expectations do you have for yourself? Think about that. Sketch out your responses to what are those performance expectations of key stakeholders, and then flip it around. What are the expectations you have of those stakeholders? So this idea of being whole and seeing how the different pieces fit together as an integral whole, a coherent piece, comes to life in the real people in your real world in terms of their expectations of you and yours of them. And what happens when you start to look at who those people are and what their expectations are of you is that you begin to see ways in which they affect one another. You start to see your life as a set of interdependent domains, how they affect each other. So how does my performance as a father affect my performance as a manager, as a friend or citizen, my physical health, my emotional health? How do those pieces affect one another? Where is there conflict and where is there compatibility? Where am I making music and where is it just chaos? You're starting to think about opportunities for improving things to make greater harmony and improve performance in each of the different domains by integrating them better, by reducing those areas of conflict and enhancing the ways in which the domains are mutually reinforcing or compatible. Then you talk to those people. You have dialogues with your key stakeholders. And this is the hardest part of the book and of the program that the book describes. Because it's not easy to talk to the people who matter most to you about what you really need from each other. But throughout that section of the book, I give examples and guidance on how to undertake these dialogues in a way that helps you to have a better, more realistic sense of what the people around you really need from you. And here's what typically happens. And I've now coached literally thousands of people through this process. What typically happens is two very important things. First, when you tell someone, you're one of the most important people in my life as I think about my future, and I'd like to talk with you about how we can strengthen our relationship in the future. Are you willing to do that? Most people will respond with feeling flattered or honored by your interest in having that conversation. So right there, you've taken an important step forward in doing what leaders must do, and that is to connect with the people who matter most to you. But more importantly, what you do in these conversations where you say, here's what I think you expect of me. Is this accurate? When you make that request of key stakeholders, what typically happens is this. You're going to be partly right and partly wrong. And the way, if you're like most of the people who've done this before, the way that you'll be wrong is that what you think they expect of you is actually going to be a little bit more than what they really expect of you. Let me say that again, because you might be skeptical about this. You might be thinking, well, Stu, you really don't know my boss, you really don't know my wife, you really don't know my friends, you really, etc. And of course I don't. But what I do know is what I have seen many, many, many times, and that is that the expectations that we carry around in our heads are usually inflated. They're usually more than what other people really do need and want from us. So if you accept that assumption that I'm making, based on the evidence that I've seen, then what does that imply in terms of what you can do? What it implies is that you can change. You can make adjustments in how you focus your time and attention. You can change what you do to pursue the satisfaction of those expectations. And that leads to the third part, which is be innovative, creatively experimenting with how things get done. And that's the fun part, where you try out experiments that are designed to produce what I call a four-way win. What they always produce is new knowledge about how to lead sustainable change, because you set up experiments that are designed to make things better, not just for you, but for all the key people in your life. And that's what makes them sustainable, and that's what makes the value of this exercise so important in terms of improving your leadership skill. Leadership is something like any other performing art or sport, is something that you can always get better at. If you think about your favorite athlete or musician and wonder about whether they're ever satisfied with being as good as they can possibly be, I can assure you that the great ones aren't. They're always learning. Same for leadership. It requires practice and dedication and continually improving your capacity. You can never be too good a tennis player or golfer or baseball player or saxophonist or a piano player. You can always be better. So that's one important point about learning leadership. And the other is that leadership is something for everyone. It's not just something that executives have or that managers have or that supervisors have. Leadership is about mobilizing people towards valued goals, and that's something that you can do in junior high school or when you're retired or when you're doing anything really with other people trying to get something done. The most powerful results have been in the area of, or the domain of the self. People feel less stress, more purposeful, a greater sense of resilience and optimism about creating change in the future. It does take some time and effort to do it, but most people tell me that they find it's not only useful and fruitful, but fun, even if a bit challenging. So I hope that you do take up that challenge, and you can find out more about how to order the book and also find other useful resources and tools, including videos of me speaking about it in more detail, as well as hearing from alumni or people who've gone through the program, and some conversations that I've had with some really interesting people talking about leadership and life and how to integrate them. You can find all that and more at totalleadership.org. You can also order this book right here at montaggio.com.